r/AskReddit, which conspiracy theory do you believe is true? The line on the laundry detergent measuring cup is higher than it needs to be. Actually, this was reported somewhere. I use about 1/2 until I hit work clothes with actual oil and grease. The feeding guidelines on my cat's food says to give large cats 3 sachets per day, 3x 100 g of meat chunks in jelly. My cats are huge. There is no goddamn way I would ever feed them 3 pouches of food. They'd be super chunkers, for sure. I give them 2 each per day, and even then it's sometimes too much, and they leave it. It's not really a conspiracy theory, but it's just a thing I noticed. I don't know what kind of athletic bodybuilding cats they have in mind for this food, but I'm not about to turn my babies into blimps. Maybe they want you to overfeed, so you have to buy more food more often. Heck knows. Michael Jordan's 2-year stint in baseball was actually a 2-year NBA ban for gambling on games. That most if not all countries have done experiments on humans against their will. Most of the votes on Reddit moving things to the top are from troll farms and corporations. Those sitting at the top of US society, that is, political bosses, think tanks, owners of media conglomerates, etc., intentionally seed distrust and fear between different factions, races, religions, regions, etc. of American society, so we forget our commonality and can't see how hard we are all being fucked over by those at the top point. As President Johnson put it, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. Related companies whose products actively degrade human/environmental health, that is, soft drink companies, plastic manufacturers, oil companies, etc., have very actively and aggressively pushed the personal responsibility angle, so that we believe everything is up to us. Not to say that we shouldn't be responsible for our own actions, but they've perverted our sense of what their contributions, sacrifices, and initiatives should be, which could actually have massive and genuine impact, but it also impacts their bottom line, so they sow misinformation. All the novels written by Dean Koontz are in fact written by a golden retriever. The man in all of the author pictures was hired because no one would take a dog novelist seriously. Finally, what I came here for. You mean like Watchers is a true story written by the dog/Koontz? Dean Koontz is the main character of Watchers, and he actually found the super intelligent dog, Einstein, and that is where all his books come from? I'm down. Tell me more. 100% believe it. The golden retriever is clearly the best written and most prominent character in like half of the books, and occasionally even the hero. The later books were more dog focused than earlier works, because the dog got increasingly confident that he wouldn't get caught. I feel like the round earth theory is true. The first NBA draft lottery was rigged to give Patrick Ewing to the Knicks. On the video, the commissioner pulls an envelope out with a clearly bent corner and sighs a huge sigh of relief when he reads what's inside. Well, that worked out really well for them. Former Knicks/NBA fan. Also, if we can see that an envelope is bent on grainy 1980s television, imagine how clear it must have been in real life. Governments spread wild and crazy conspiracy theories to discredit conspiracy theorists and make them look like lunatics. That way, when someone actually finds a real conspiracy, people will just go, oh, it's one of those crazy guys. Muddying the waters is an old political game, and it's being played more actively today than ever before. I think Futurama has an episode where something like this is mentioned. The US president says that the only people in the super secret meeting would be him, Pentagon generals, and a single nutcase conspiracy theorist to spread the news/have no one believe him. Edit. Found it. Episode Roswell. That ends well. Truman, fellas, this visit's top secret. No one's to know about it except the senior officers. They salute. Scientists, they nod, and a single conspiracy nutter no one will believe. He laughs and takes bad photo. I genuinely think the FBI and the Kennedys had Marilyn Monroe killed. Why though? I'm not informed on literally any of that section. I think they have cloned humans. Exhibit A, Guxy, Maine. I think about this a lot. When I was a kid I remember hearing they cloned a sheep 20 years later, and we have heard no news about cloning. I don't know if I buy my own conspiracy theory, and I'm not entirely sure what exactly the conspiracy is, but I'll repost the same thing I always post when this question is asked. I had a Vietnamese roommate in college. One time someone mentioned apples and my roommate said he could rip them in half. We all called bullshit, and so he did it to shut us up. It was pretty cool. But then he claimed that all Vietnamese people can do it. That didn't sound right. So now, whenever I meet a new Vietnamese person, I ask, in as polite, and not creepy, and not racist a way as I can, if they can rip an apple in half, and I'll be damned if every person I've ever asked goes yeah, sure. Also, most of them follow up with all Vietnamese people can rip apples in half. Then I always ask if that's just how people in Vietnam eat apples, and they always say no, we just eat them the normal way, but all Vietnamese people can rip them in half if they want to. I truly don't know if I'm being trolled or not. If I ask the question and have an apple, I'll always give it to the person who claims they can do this, and they always can. So there's some truth to it, but I cannot figure out why. In my experience, almost all Vietnamese people claim that all Vietnamese people can rip apples in half. That's a weird thing to claim. How are they so sure about what every other Vietnamese person can do? Are they implying that Laotians and Thai people can't do this? Is it a special trick they teach only in Vietnam? I would never claim that all Americans can juggle, or that all white people can juggle. See, I don't even know if they are suggesting it's a racial trait or a cultural skill point, or is it that Vietnamese people are just really proud of their culture, so they like to fib about the skills everyone else has. And then when tested with an apple, all Vietnamese people are just so confident that they're awesome enough to do it that they just brute force the apple in half. Or was there a meeting once and all Vietnamese people realized that they could help each other by making wild fruit claims about the skills of the Vietnamese so that they could trick dumb white boys like me into giving them free fruit to test their powers? I would welcome any data anyone else can offer on this. My sample size is admittedly small, about 8 Vietnamese people, so this could just be a statistical fluke. But when 6 people, who have almost certainly never met each other before, independently claim that all Vietnamese people have fruit powers, it makes you wonder whether it might just be true. Follow-up notes. Yes, I understand that plenty of non-Vietnamese folks can rip an apple in half. Hell, I can do it too. That doesn't make the Vietnamese fruit claims that I've experienced less peculiar. Yes, I know that British comedian Bob Mortimer can do this by my rough estimate from past comments in previous threads. For every Vietnamese person claiming that they've never heard of this, there's another Vietnamese person claiming that all Vietnamese people can rip apples, and yet another non-Vietnamese person who asks a coworker or an in-law or a friend and learns that they can rip apples. Of that last group, it seems like about half of the Vietnamese people asked and oh yeah, all Vietnamese people can do that. Let me address all Vietnamese people for a second. If a bunch of people give you free apples to test this, and you like apples, enjoy. If you get a bunch of annoying fruit inquiries that you don't want to deal with, I'm sorry. But really, is it my fault for accurately reporting my experiences with Vietnamese folks, apple ripping, and Vietnamese folks' claims about apple ripping? Or should you really be annoyed at all of my past Vietnamese acquaintances who have made these claims? Anyway, at least hopefully this is more fun for you to talk about than the war original comment here.
https://www.reddit.com/r/videos/comments/5jazz/on_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I_I
www.reddit.com/r/AskReddit/comment/7s36 sub/what_theory_do_100 by_into_and_y/dt1vg6j/. That's crazy. I thought I was the only one who knew about this. My family has a lot of Vietnamese friends, and we are very close. They have some sort of party every year, and we are invited, because we are almost like family. They always have an apple cracking contest among the adults and older teens, and everyone can do it. I asked them how, and they responded with the same thing: all Vietnamese people can. This is so wonderfully bizarre and specific, I hope I never forget it. The first time I saw someone tear an apple in half, it was a Vietnamese dude at my high school. Hated him, but the apple thing was cool. I'm Vietnamese and I have never heard of this, nor have ever even tried it. But I can absolutely rip an apple in half. I believe you have put more time and thought into this than a lot of other theories get. You have converted me into becoming a believer. I work with a couple Vietnamese guys. I'm gonna ask them. Edit. I asked them, and they all said no, and had never heard that being a cultural thing. I'm as disappointed as you are. Downvote my comment. I don't deserve this comment karma. Wait, I've got a Vietnamese roommate too. I'll ask him lol. I looked this up and found one of my favorite photographers doing it. Best part are the top comments related to your theory. Throwback Thursday was invented so that social media apps, mainly Facebook, could build and develop facial recognition technology showing the faces of people over time. Edit. A word edit too. There are a lot of people replying who don't understand. A huge percentage of Facebook users these days are your parents, uncles, aunts, and grandparents who have, literally, decades worth of printed photos sitting in show boxes that would never see the light of day again, if not for schemes like these. TBT is not for you 20 to 30 somethings who are simply reposting a photo you took in college 10 years ago. Isn't that true for #10Leah challenge as well? Wow. That's a good one. That actually makes sense. Sony had Michael Jackson killed so that they could secure the rights to the Beatles discography. I read one about MJ being killed because he was the one who wanted to expose all the elite pedophiles in Hollywood, and his ranch with the kids was actually a sanctuary for victims. He was framed as a pedo himself to tarnish his reputation, and no one would believe anything he said. Paul Pierce pooped his pants in an NBA game and pretended he hurt his ankle to get a wheelchair off court. He already admitted he crap his pants. That Dunskneder, or however you spell it, is a real creep and child predator and should have never worked for Nickelodeon. Not even really a conspiracy theory. Ever noticed how addicted to feet he was /? I don't think this is much of a conspiracy, it's pretty much just a known fact. There's no cover up to his creepy behavior. Now if you said Jamie Lynn Spears had his kid and that's why Zoe 101 ended, then we would have ourselves a conspiracy theory. That hot dog manufacturers have a secret agreement with the bun companies to produce different amounts of each product. I don't know the numbers exactly, but for example, you need dogs for a cookout, so you buy some, and the only available package size is 8 hot dogs. Then, you go and get some buns which only come in packs of 12. Therefore, once you cook your 8 hot dogs, you still have leftover buns, which means you will buy more hot dogs to use those buns, and you will then have to buy more buns to use those hot dogs that were bought to finish the original buns. The cycle continues. Steve Martin already went to jail for exclaiming this theory circa Father of the Bride. 4 packs of buns and 6 packs of hot dogs, 48 total hot dogs. There are only 42 questions ever asked on this sub and they are randomly posted by a bot. I think the bot needs work though. This one was just asked 2 days ago. What conspiracy theory do you believe to be true? Men. What makes a woman sexy? Women. What makes a man sexy? You can send one message to everyone. What would it be? Americans. What shocked you when traveling abroad? Non-Americans. What shocked you about the United States? If every state represented something dumb, what would your state be? Instead of hell/convenience stores, what would heck/inconvenience stores have? What are your dating red flags? What is a story you have to tell that hasn't fit any AskReddit questions? I think I can get all 42. Shh, don't tell people. Where else am I supposed to get the answers for this one? The FBI killed MLK. Man, I hate acronym on acronym violence. Government keep asking people on r/AskReddit about the conspiracies they believe in, so that they can do better job at hiding it. Wait a minute. FBI, bitch, you wanna disappear? JFK was only wounded by LHO's bullet. He was actually killed by a Secret Service agent's bullet accidentally, which is why there was such an obvious cover-up. LHO's bullet was a full metal jacket bullet which hit JFK in the throat, before ricocheting into Governor Connally. The bullet which blew up half of JFK's head was almost certainly a hollow point bullet. Instead of continuing its trajectory like a FMJ would, the hollow point expands after the first object that it hits, which was JFK's head. There was one known weapon in play which was using hollow point bullets that day. It was a submachine gun which did not have the safety on and was operated by George Hickey. In the melee after LHO shots were fired, the theory is that Hickey accidentally discharged his weapon and killed the president. The Secret Service could never let anyone know that they had accidentally killed the president, hence their behavior in the aftermath. This is one of my favorites, because it's not a sinister far-reaching 4-dimensional plot, it's just somebody F up, and people trying to hide that fuck up. I enjoy JFK assassination conspiracy theories, never heard this one. That is perfect timing, and aim for an accident though. That is actually very interesting. Now this is a conspiracy I want to inquire more about, because it seems plausible. Tip: find what you are probably looking for by sorting by controversial. The whistleblower Doctor Who first released info about the virus didn't die of the virus. The Chinese government killed him. To that I think are legit. The National Child Identification Program, the one that offers parents the chance to get their children photographed, fingerprinted, document noticeable scars, ailments, etc., is really just a ploy for the government to gather as much information willingly from the populace under the guise of keeping your children safe. Certain things are being changed or eliminated to promote consumerism. Home ec, woodshop, etc. are no longer taught in many schools. Headlights on your car that you previously could change for $5 now cost $125 and must be done by the dealer or mechanic. Planned obsolescence means products are designed to fail, so consumers must consistently buy new products. So on and so forth. Edit: I realize that they print and ID your child's info when they are born. I'm not talking about that. I realize that home ec, shop, etc. are not completely eliminated from all school curricula, but they have significantly declined. I realize that some of these classes may have been removed for budgetary reasons, but those are probably not the only reasons. I'm not just talking about newer headlights. You see the same thing on vehicles with older, halogen headlights as well. Planned obsolescence is separate from home ec and the headlight. It is another method of promoting consumerism. Planned obsolescence is straight up taught in schools now. It's part of the design process. It's not a conspiracy. part of it is driven by money, but the other is because manufacturers and developers are always working on better versions of the product and expect to have a way better product out before you need it. P.S. I think Dell got in trouble a few years ago when one of the design team came out and straight up said that they designed their products to last 2 years and 6 months, which is about 6 months past their warranty. It got covered up almost immediately and disappeared, so I can't find the source point, and, yeah. Then SIP is definitely just trying to gather intel. The Real ID program was basically put in place to build out the federal government's facial recognition software. https://www.pandasecurity.com/mediacenter/mobile news/realid facial recognition/. Jim Jones was a CIA operative running MK Ultra mind control experiments. Congressman Ryan was going to blow the lid off the whole operation and try to have the CIA abolished. He was murdered as he boarded his airplane to fly back to the States, and everybody in Jonestown was either forced to drink the Kool-Aid or shot in order to silence them. Mine will likely get buried, but here it goes. I'm a farmer and prices for our commodities in the US have been depressed for 1/2 a decade now, with no end in sight. The USDA releases monthly reports on acres planted, projected yield, stocks of grains, etc. My theory is that the USDA makes these numbers up to manipulate the commodities markets to keep the prices at a level that encourages export. We had terrible yields and the lowest number of harvested acres in corn across the country last year of the last decade, yet the price you can sell it today is below 1980 price. Why? Exports have slowed, so need to knock the price back. Hope this makes sense. I will answer questions if you have some. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes and the gold. I appreciate the good conversation and questions. Market manipulation by government-backed entities when it comes to agriculture is definitely a thing. I know it's not the same, but have you watched Super Size Me 2? Holy chicken? Spurlock decides he wants to open a chicken fast food restaurant, essentially just using it as an excuse to learn the ins and outs of the gross evils behind fast food. What he discovers, actually, is the insane and horrible way chicken farmers are treated in the US, and that Big Chicken, backed up by the US government, not only exists, but essentially has a monopoly on all chicken farming in the country. They will arbitrarily decide what each farmer's chickens are worth, meaning if you piss them off, they will just be like, okay, you only get paid this for your chicken now, because F you. Doesn't the US overproduce certain commodities like corn and soybean, so we can sell the surplus to other countries to undermine their local farmers? The reason we don't have free education and free healthcare in the United States is because those are the two big factors to why people join the military. They can promise the GI Bill and VA hospitals to all people that serve. If you take those two huge motivations away, then you will lose a big percentage of recruits. They intentionally put tiny pockets in women's clothing to sell purses and bags. Ellen broke the Cybertruck windows on purpose to get more memes out of it. I think he did it so that memes would be made and then he wouldn't have to pay for advertising. We did it for him. I think his whole marketing plan for the Cybertruck was memes. I haven't double checked this myself, but I think that if we look at the money spent on advertising, it's barely anything. The Cybertruck became very popular through memes, and Ellen probably knew memes were just as effective, maybe even more effective, than traditional marketing, and it's totally free. He be smart. That there are monsters in the ocean. We have only discovered 5% of our world's ocean, and I truly believe there is something hiding down there. Edit. Turns out it's like 9 or 10% now. I imagine something like a super gigantic shark or some kind of snake thing. Or even dinosaurs. We need James Cameron to raise the bar down there. To conspiracy theorists, walk into a bar, you can't tell me that was just a coincidence, man. Conspiracy theorist dies and goes to heaven. At the pearly gates, God himself says you've led a good life, and as a reward, I will answer any one question for you, and I will give you the complete truthful answer. Okay, says the conspiracy theorist. Who killed JFK? God says Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Conspiracy theorist says this goes deeper than I thought. We live in a simulation, however, the code is constantly being upgraded. In olden times, there were plenty of bugs that were easy to exploit if you knew where to look. Thus things like miracles and magic were basically hackers doing what they do. Okay, I don't really believe this is true. I just like it. And this goes with the Mandela effect. Code tweaks could account for the little everyday things that some folks remember one way, but you look it up and it's another. That is, Nelson Mandela died in jail in the 1990s, Mr. Monopoly had a monocle, etc. That Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord, and he was supposed to be in Count Dooku's place. If anything, he's the master. Gov uses tragedies and chaos to push through legislation that would be under scrutiny from their citizens under normal times. Right now during the COVID-19 thing, the USA Gov is passing a bill that lets them in on any conversation. I don't believe there is any possible way Lee Harvey Oswald shot and killed Kennedy alone. Edit. I should have said I think it's highly unlikely. Dr. David Kelly was murdered. The British government did everything they could to ensure that the Lusitania would be sunk by a German U-boat and hasten America's entry into WW1. The Lusitania was sunk in 1915, 2 years prior to American entry into the war, which makes me skeptical of this one. Now the Zimmerman telegram on the other hand was definitely revealed for that purpose. More convincing, I would say, is that it was down to heavy lobbying by companies and banks who wanted to make sure the Allies would win, so they could pay their war debts. Woody Harrelson's dad, Charles Harrelson, a known hitman who died in prison while serving a sentence for killing a federal judge, was one of 3 men who killed JFK. The day JFK was shot, 3 homeless men were arrested with photos of them dressed and known as the 3 Tramps. None of these men were homeless. They were released shortly afterwards. Charles Harrelson repeatedly admitted he killed JFK. However, Charles Harrelson was just a triggerman. The CIA was responsible for JFK's death. Oswald was just a fall guy. Edit. Spelling. Children will one day grow up and take over the world. At first I was like, that would be pure mayhem. Then I just went, oh, I'm a dumbass out loud. All the UFO sightings throughout history are just humans from the future on a time traveling safari meant to observe how we were in the past. They are supposed to keep out of sight, but thanks to human/mechanical errors there have been hiccups with their cloaking which have resulted in being seen. That's why there have always been so many reports of them throughout history, but there has never been an attack. It's just us. Also the reason why we don't see as many examples of UFOs now, even through pretty much everyone has a camera, is because people are not that interested in this time period, since we already document aspects of human life all the time. I've always thought extraterrestrial life was out there and still do. It may also be illegal to come to this time period due to the quality of documentation. Get caught in 20th century? Worst case scenario is a couple of blurry pictures. Get caught now. Full HD 1080p footage. If that is the case, then I could imagine there would be restrictions on where we can go and what we can do while time traveling. Media is pushing that healthcare workers are heroes, so when this is over and there is a pile of dead doctors and nurses, the conversation will be about our heroic sacrifice, not the failure to protect us to begin with. I think Burke Ramsey killed John Bennett, and the parents did an elaborate cover-up to save him from having his life ruined. The food pyramid was, and continues to be, a lie. It is so very hard to get good nutritional studies. Every study that has even a remotely acceptable number of subjects is funded by someone with an invested interest. Every good nutritional study has been bought and paid for. Coke literally funded a study back in the day that said sugar is bad for you, except Coke, you cannot make this crap up. Epstein did not kill himself. That there is a perfect person for everyone. Not really a conspiracy theory, but I have to believe in something, I guess. Reddit mods are all homosexual. Boris and the buses. When now Prime Minister Boris Johnson was going for the Conservative Party leadership, a truly odd story emerged about his hobbies, namely that he liked to make and paint models of buses. This is a pretty weird hobby at the best of times, and the British media went nuts reporting on how affable and ridiculous good old Boris was. Side note, it's not the first time that a Tory leader has come across as having some fucking odd ways to spend their off hours. When asked what the naughtiest thing she ever did as a child was, the Samay famously replied that she used to run through fields of wheat, earning her the greatest political nickname I've ever heard, the Thatcher in the Rye. However, I'm a big believer that they all got played. Much like the idea that Disney only called a movie Frozen because it would turn Google search results for Disney Frozen away from rumors of Walt Disney's cryogenically frozen head, which is a nice thought, but not one I buy into. I think this was Boris's attempt to divert attention away from other results linking Boris Johnson and buses, namely, the photo of him standing in front of a bus with a big fuck off lie on the side of it that claimed that the UK would get £350 million a week to spend on the NHS after Brexit. Now the Boris Johnson bus story is a charming hobby in the traditional British mold, and not a straight up lie that is threatening to F the country's economy back to the Stone Age. That some Redditors are not virgin. James I/V organized his own assassination attempt to increase his popularity. He was never in any danger from the gunpowder plot. Also, Henry VII had the twins in the Tower killed, not Richard III. If Richard had killed them, he could have shown their bodies to cement his kingship. Henry VII needed them missing, but not proven dead to keep him in the succession and to take the throne. Edit. Misnumbered James. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more. See you next time.